Okay, this is Jessica Taylor. It is April 21st, 2023, and we're here in Christchurch, Virginia. This is for the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and the project is the Tidewater Main Street Project. And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
Gilbert Robinson.
Perfect. And when and where were you born?
I was born right where I'm at today, in this house that I live in today, in August the 5th, 1945.
And what part of Middlesex County is that?
It's Locust Hill.
Okay. And what were your parents' names and occupations?
Well, my father was a painter and an oysterman, and Edward Robinson, and my mother, Helen Robinson. She was actually, it's not a whole lot I can tell you, but my mother, she died when I was 4 years old. She had pancreatic cancer, and but she was a housewife during my time, you know.
Okay. And what was your mother's maiden name?
Pleasant.
Pleasant. Mm-hmm. And did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes.
What were their names?
Well, there was my older sister, Emma Kemp. She married a Kemp. And then there was Helen, who married a Kimball. And then there was Joyce, my youngest sister, who married a Adams. And it was my brother, Thomas Robinson, and myself, Gilbert.
Mm-hmm. And did you all attend St. Clair Walker?
Yes.
Okay. What years were you there?
I was there, I wasn't there that long. I was there to the 10th grade. All the rest of them graduated and moved on.
Okay. So they were all there for their entire...
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what are your earliest memories of St. Clair Walker?
Well, when I first came to St. Clair Walker, it was, they had integrated the schools, but not racially integrated. The down county people lived in and went to the down county school, like I went to Locust Hill School, you know, Haley Mills School. Then there's a Syringa that's lower. Then you go up to Shiloh and Mount Zion. So they did away with all of the little schools and put us all together. And that was, I'm not even sure what year, but it's something like 60, I'm gonna say 62.
How did that affect you?
Well, it went from walking to school to catching the school bus to school. Distance, that's but all. Yeah.
What was your distance when you were walking?
A mile. Mm-hmm.
Okay. At St. Clair Walker, what were your classes like?
The classes, mm-hmm. They were, you know, normal, good classes. You know, I mean, we were still studying the same thing, but a little more advanced. You know, they were good classes. Mathematics, English, you know, things of that sort.
What do you remember about the teachers?
The teachers? Well, we had good teachers. I don't want to call a teacher a bad teacher, but we had teachers that had good attitudes, were pleasant and kind. And then we had teachers that was a little unhumble, I guess you can call that. Got an arrogant type of spirit, but I mean, just like anywhere you go, you find that. So we dealt with it.
Were there role models or teachers that you loved that stick out to you?
Well, when I was at the elementary school down here at Locust Hill, I did love, they had 3 teachers there, and I did love one of them. And I guess the reason was because by not having a mother going to school, and not even in the siblings, because I'm the youngest one, and once they graduated, they were gone. So it was just myself and my father. And Mrs. Poston, she kind of recognized that I didn't have things that the other kids had, a mother and a father. And so she kind of like, I don't know, took me in or cared for me more so, and she was just such a loving person that I just cared for her very much, you know. And I made it a promise to myself that I was going to see her just about every month, forever. And I did until she died.
What did she do that made you feel cared for?
Well, she used to talk to me a lot and ask me how I'm doing, what do I need, just give me a little hug, and just I act like a mother. And I just didn't have that before, you know. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's what attracted me to her.
At home, how did you and your father talk about school?
Pretty much it won't, you know, it was just, you need to get your lesson and the conversation like that, but it really was no sit down and talk about school or what you're going to do, what you're going to learn, where you're going to go. You know, just, I went my way to school and back home, and he went his way to work and back home thing, you know.
Did he attend St. Clair Walker, or did your mother?
No, they went to, it was a little school down in Syringa that my father went to, you know, and it was, that's pretty much all I remember about that, you know.
What extracurricular activities were you involved in at St. Clair Walker?
I used to play basketball. That's primarily it. And I used to have a little artistic ability, so I used to draw things, you know, but that's about it.
In terms of basketball, what do you remember about your time playing?
Well, I was known to be able to get the ball from one end of the court to the other. And, you know, people appreciate that because when you're playing a game, that's what needs to happen. So if you can make that happen, you get a pat on your back for that. And that's pretty much it. I enjoyed the pat on my back.
Do any particular games stick out to you?
Say that again.
Do any particular games or moments stick out to you?
Not really, you know. I was a little bit on the mischievous side, so a few times I had to go to the office for something that I did, and just the conversation from whatever happened to the office with the teachers was, but nothing special.
Okay. What was your relationship like with your coach and your teammates?
Good, you know, and the teammates good.
Mm-hmm. Who was your coach?
Back then it was Madison. He was the head coach, and then it was Bibby was one coach, and I went through 3 or 4 different coaches, you know. Blackman was a coach, you know, and these were nice guys, you know. I remember when all of our teachers were older teachers, and then one year we got like about a whole big handful of young teachers straight out of school, and the whole teaching skills seemed to change. The attitudes began to change because we couldn't relate to the older teachers. You know, hi, yes ma'am, no ma'am, how are you? And that's about it, unless they have a question or something, you know. But these guys were something like us. We could, you know, we could talk about anything, and we could laugh and joke and go play pool together and stuff like that. So it was different in that sense, you know.
Who were the new teachers that you remember, the younger ones?
The same guy, Bibby, I just said. Then it was Coach Hintz, and then it was what's the guy named Proctor, and who else was up there then? It's a couple that I'm just forgetting. That's all. But that's who were basically the teachers then.
And what did they teach?
Well, these were the coaches that I'm talking about.
Just coaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you play pool?
Well, it was a little place up here at Cook's Corner that had a pool table in there. And then a couple of guys had pool tables in their homes. And that's pretty much where we went, you know.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of the place at Cook's Corner?
Well, it was school itself. Lynn Davis is what we call it, going to Lynn Davis, you know. And then Herman Wake. That was a dance hall right up the road from Lynn Davis. Go there, you know.
What do you remember about going to Lynn Davis's? Was there anything interesting that happened, or?
It was just a lot of shooting and fighting, that's what all, you know, if you call that interesting.
That's pretty interesting. Do you remember specific instances where that would occur?
Oh yeah, I remember one time standing there talking to about 3 guys in a row, and this 4th guy came up, and we had a pint of whiskey, and we were sharing it. I take a drink and pass it to the next guy. This guy shows up, and he said, "Give me a drink." And so we handed him the bottle, and he took the bottle and backed off of us, and then just tried to drink it all, the rest. So this one boy that was in the crowd reached over and snatched the bottle out of his hand and told him that he shouldn't do that or something. Then that same boy backed up and he reached his hand in his pocket. And this was a long time ago. If that happened today, I understand. But this didn't happen then. And he pulled out a pistol and just shot the boy right in his chest. And that was like something you don't see. And it was like shocking and disturbing and everything else. But things like that happen then, you know. I mean, most of the time, if there was some anger, it was a fist fight, which the different as you got older, then they went to weapons, you know. But I guess you can say that was the good old days compared to going to school, you know.
What was the inside of Lynn Davis's establishment like?
It was just a wide open, and he had a county across the back where you go to the county, buy your beer, your sodas, and then he just had a one on this side that they always had somebody there that cooked sandwiches. If you want a chicken sandwich, a bowl of soup, you go there. And the rest of it had tables and chairs there, and you just sit and drink your beer and eat your sandwich and run your mouth.
Nothing on the walls or anything?
No, it was common, single block place, just painted white.
And there was music, right?
Yes, they had a jukebox in there, and music was constantly, yeah.
Do you remember any particular songs that were favorites?
Well, songs like I Want to Knock, Knock, Knock on Your Door was out, and, you know, Chuck Willis and Little Richard songs and all of those old characters, you know, that type of music.
And for Herman Wakes, what do you remember about Herman Wakes?
Well, that was a Saturday night dance place. They had bands that would come from Hampton, King and Queen, wherever. And on Saturday nights, we would leave Lynn Davis. And then by 10 o'clock, I think the dance started, and we would just go to the dance from this spot to that spot. And then you get up and the same thing, they had a place in there you could buy food, had a pool table in there, you could shoot pool, run your mouth, and listen at the band. Dance a little bit.
Do you remember particular bands that would come through?
Yes, it was a band called the Jammin' Jammers, and they were known to be the best band. They were from out of Newport News, Virginia. Then they had the Jammin' Jammers, and it was a band from Gloucester, the Intruders. And then they had, what's another band? Then a couple of bands, I don't even know if I know the names of them. They used to come from, every once in a while you get, these guys was like popular almost all of the time bands. And then every once in a while you get a strange band from somewhere that, you know, showed up and played.
Were there particular songs that you remember that they would play a lot?
Well, see, you messing with my mind now, and that don't go far. It's the same old songs that I just mentioned, you know. Sam Cooke was popular back then, and this is in the 60s, you know. And James Brown was popular, and Otis Redding was coming along afterward, and the songs that they sung, you know, I liked them all, really, you know. So I can't even remember the songs now, you know.
What did the inside of the dance hall look like?
Same. It was just common wall, white walls, nothing hanging on the walls. Just a common open space.
Did it have overhead lights?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did people smoke inside?
Yes.
Okay. And how did people get there usually?
How did they get there? Mm-hmm. How do you mean?
In terms of if you were going to go to Cook's Corner, did people walk? Did people park their car outside?
Well, it's like sitting in a wide field, and you just go there and park wherever and however you can.
Okay.
They had a little design that we had got used to, that you can park this way, and then around the front, you can park right across the front and on the back. I mean, you knew in your mind where to park at, And pretty much it always was crowded up there, so it was like a search for a parking lot deal, anyhow.
Mm-hmm. Would you go with a date?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Or would you go with friends?
Friends, both.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. In terms of the outside area, there was a baseball field, correct?
It was a baseball field near Herman Waits. Between Cook's Corner and Herman Waits was a baseball diamond. Then there was a baseball diamond that was down the road a little further, right there, not far from Christ Church School. And there was a baseball diamond. And then they had a baseball diamond over in called Jerome Ballpark. That was on the other side of Urbana. But all of it was in the little Middlesex County areas,
What do you remember about the baseball diamond at Cook's Corner?
Well, I didn't play ball. I don't know if I was too young. I think I was too young. But I'm not really a ball player anyhow, baseball. But the guys that we knew that played ball, a guy named Sport Frazier and Theodore Williams and Arthur Macon and Columbus Lane, these guys, we kind of looked up to them because they had a little sport figure about themselves, and when we saw them, and I used to like to go there and be sitting, eat a hot dog and get a soda and watch the game,
Where did the hot dog and soda come from?
They had a little stand out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any particular moments at the baseball field that stick out to you? Any particular games or?
Other than a couple of guys that was on the team, that was pretty much well known. And when I saw them, it did a little something to me, because he's a great guy.
Like who?
Like Theodore Williams was a good baseball player. This guy named Sport Frazier. And this guy named Arthur Macon. I'll name them three. And they were like outstanding players, Mm-hmm.
How often did they play?
I think in the summertime they try to have a game almost every week. If they're not playing in Middlesex, they'll go to King and Queen and play. They go to Kilmarnock and play. So they stayed kind of busy,
Mm-hmm. What made them good players?
It just like what made you a good interview.
Well, what positions did they play?
Oh, I know Theodore used to pitch. And the rest of the guys played common first baseman, outfielders,
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there was a theater nearby, correct?
It was a theater up the county. You talking about like a drive-in theater?
Yes.
Yeah, it was one up in Warner, which is about, 5, 7, 8, 9 miles, something like that.
Okay. Did you ever go there?
Yes. Used to go there. We used to sneak in because back then we didn't have no money to pay to go in anyhow. And if we wanted to go to the game, we'd get somebody, and we would get in this trunk, like about 4 of us could get in the trunk of a car. We just put the trunk down, and he'll pay, him and whoever is in the car, and they go in, and we come out of the trunk, sit on the hood of the car and look at the movie.
Is there anything that I'm not thinking of when it comes to Cook's Corner that you could share?
Well, Cook's Corner was just it just was a spot that was well known to go and drink beer and party, I guess, listen to music, see a bunch of people, laugh and joke, come on home.
Were there people from out of town that would come to Cook's Corner besides the bands and the baseball players?
Yeah, people outside used to come in, sure.
From where?
All of the surrounding counties, Gloucester, Kilmarnock, Matthews, you know. Because it was a giant, and just like myself, I used to go there, like go to Gloucester, Matthews for the same reason, you know.
Where would you go in Gloucester and Matthews?
It was a place called Jolly Spot, which is the same as Cook's Corner. Another place called Club 14. Those were in Matthews. And it was a little joint down in Gloucester called Stokes Inn, Stokes something. And you know, you just go to either one that you can get to. Sometimes we not young and not having a car, we had to catch rides, or if we had a car, that's how it was, you know. Sometimes we couldn't go at all.
What was the relationship like between young people in Gloucester and Matthews and young people in Middlesex?
Matthews always was known to be, in other words, I'm not going to say there was they caused trouble, but they always was like more rough. They like to fight and cause disturbance and get people confused for some reason. And Middlesex, that wasn't our habit. You know, we always try to be nice to people and kind, and you could go to any beer giant around here and have a nice time. If you go down Matthews, you might as well you might get in a fight in your head. You might as well keep that in your head, because that'll be true, you know. So they had a little different attitude, and like Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock was definitely, it's like you better walk straight when you go to Kilmarnock. Just the attitude and the people.
Was there a reason that Matthews or Gloucester would have been different?
I don't know what the reason would be, other than, they were people just like we were. I just think that they might came up life a little harder than we were, and they just had a custom of acting like that, you know.
Well, going back to your high school years and middle school years, you said you liked to draw as part of your extracurricular activities. What did you do with your art?
Nothing. You draw and just take it home or put it in the trash or whatever.
Was it a class, or was it like a club?
No, this wasn't a class. This is just an ability that I had. I used to just draw a lot. And when on the job where I retired from, somehow my name got out, and I'm talking now, I'm talking in the last 15 years. The guys over there would want me to draw something. Say, hey, tell Gilbert to draw me a picture of somebody stealing cabbages out of a man, or something like that. Draw a picture of the foreman get ready to retire, him in his office with his feet up on the desk or something, you know. And in fact, I almost got in trouble one time for having a name of drawing that I didn't draw. Somebody drew a picture of a supervisor on a steel beam outside, and the first thing that come to me, and I almost got in trouble for it. And I said, they said, you must have been you the only one around here draw, you know. And I said, well, I did not draw the picture. so, people get to know that you can do certain things, and that's how I did that.
When was the supervisor, was that recent or?
Let me see, I've been retired now for 10 years, 12 years, and that was back prior to that. We had a supervisor. He was a nice guy, but and we found out who did it. This guy was a contractor. He didn't even work at 40 mill. He worked at the mill. And he was an artist, because when he drew that supervisor, he looked exactly like him. He was much better than I was, you know. But nevertheless, I got blamed for that because I was known to draw pictures, you know.
How did your time at St. Clair Walker affect your life after graduation?
Well, I didn't graduate. Remember, I told you I went to
That's right.
10th grade. But
yes.
I mean, I love the students there, and I can say I love the teachers there. And I did learn that one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life is I didn't graduate because I wanted to go in the Army. So I quit school and volunteered for the Army. Then when I got inducted into the armed forces, I couldn't hear. You can see, that's why I asked you just now. I couldn't hear good enough to go in the Army. And during that time, that was, I think, in '63, it was peacetime. There was no Vietnam wars and nothing like that. So they really didn't want any volunteers. They choose you, you know, just pick you if that would be the case. So you had to be almost perfect to go in the Army, you know what I mean? Because they didn't want to.
Oh. Thank you.
And that's but I mean, as far as the school system, I mean, I don't have any problem with it. I regret what I did, but other than that, I did everything anybody else did, you know.
After you quit and the Army didn't work out, what happened?
Well, I should have went back to school. That's what I should have did. But I decided I was going to go in another field, and I wanted to be an undertaker. So I went to take the undertaking course up in Richmond. And when I got there, I found out that the course was longer than the average course. It was more expensive than the average course. So I thought that, well, while I'm here, let me just see what else they offer. And being skillful with my hands, as I mentioned, I decided that maybe I can be a barber, cut hair. And that's what I took, that course. And I went to school up at Turpin School of Technology. And I stayed there and finished the course and got my license. And I cut hair for 65, still cut hair. Still cut hair, you know.
Where do you cut hair now?
I have a barber shop at my home down at Locust Hill where I live. I don't cut hair as a general rule now because actually the people that I cut hair for right now are the people that did things for me. You know, like one guy's a plumber, one guy's an electrician, and these guys did stuff for me for years, and they wouldn't charge me, and they would just, I don't care what kind of trouble I get in, I call them, they would come. And those are the ones that I cut hair for. And I don't charge them right today, you know. And that's why I'm still cutting hair, just for them, for that reason.
What year did you start cutting hair?
I started cutting hair I went to school in '63, so the latter part of '63.
Okay. And when you were still in school at St. Clair Walker, how aware were you of international events in the 50s and 60s, or national or regional events, things like integration nationally, for example, or the civil rights movement, or even Kennedy's assassination or Sputnik or things like that?
Well, I remember the Kennedy assassination. I was in school, and they mentioned over the loudspeaker, and that was like, you know, a shock, because we never heard of that before anyhow. Then plus, it just was a shock. And it kind of just slowed everybody down and made people think, but, you know, that's a period that you just have to go through, you know.
Did you discuss current events at school that you can remember?
And the special events?
Current events, news.
You mean when I was in school? I mean, nothing special, nothing unusually special, you know.
Yeah.
The only thing that was different when the young teachers came in, that was different. And, you know, but other than that.
You did say that you could talk to them about anything. What did you guys talk about, you and the younger teachers?
Well, you know, they used to like to do what we did, you know, and like shooting pool because no teachers would go to a place and shoot pool with you, you know, and normally. Well, when they came along, they did what we did. They even came to the dance hall, you know, and this is the guy that's teaching you. He up there dancing with you. It was just unusual. But we got to like them because they were just like us. And so we got to the point that we could communicate, we go out together, and you know, it's that thing.
Do you remember any of the cafeteria workers or the food at St. Clair Walker?
I remember, yes, I remember the cafeteria quite well. I remember, let me see, it was, I think, if I ain't mistaken, I think that the lady that used to run the dance hall up here used to cook daily at the school. But most of them, I know most all of them just died, and you know, I can't remember. But I remember getting in line and liking certain things, and you're happy that this day is tomorrow. We're going to have this for lunch.
Like
and so
what?
you look for, like a hamburger, or I didn't like a regular meal with like spinach or carrots. I mean, I just didn't want that, you know what I mean? But when they say the next day we're going to have a hamburger and some corn or something like that, you couldn't wait.
I think that's most of the questions that I have, but I'd love to hear anything else that you'd like to talk about Cook's Corner or St. Clair Walker or your life.
Well, my wife.
Your life,
Oh,
but
my life.
also your wife.
Okay, no, that's all right. Okay. Well, it's nothing amazing about my life, just a common thing, I always try to get along with people. That was because my father used to teach me to do that. My father used to always tell me that sometimes you got to bite the bullet. You can't have your way about everything. And so those are some of the wise things that I remembered, and I try to apply in my life, My father and all of his brothers, they had a spirit about themselves to get excited too quick. Like you could disturb my father real quick and say something that's wrong. And I think I had that spirit too, And at least my wife told me I did. But I worked on that. And I really did work on that, and I guess that's why I try to be super nice to people now, to make sure that old bad spirit don't come. But I'll admit that sometimes if you don't say something right, I get a little quicker than probably you would. But nevertheless, I got that under control now. But it's nothing else unusual, Like I said, I loved a couple of the school teachers, and especially the one that I told you that cared for me because I didn't have a mother to look to me like that, and I remember that, and I love that moment. And I didn't try to cause any problems or trouble with anybody, and I just a common life. That's all, I was fortunate enough to get on at the mill, not being educated. I got hired over here at the pump mill, and I spent 38 years there. Plus was cut in half for about 65 years. So I was pretty busy. I didn't have time to bother people, But there are some things in my life that I would, if I could, especially the educational part, I do wish that I had went about that right. But anyhow.
Well, speaking of education, what did your father or your grandfather or your uncles teach you about life?
Well, my father basically taught me that, my father just pretty much basically taught me to get along with people, and that's the key to, be happy, get along with people, you be nice to people, people be nice to you. And that's one way that you can make it in life, too, but my father, he finished school. I don't think he had to go to like but the 11th grade or something when he was young. So he finished school, and he wasn't a professor, but he was a right sharp guy, especially mathematics. You couldn't beat him in mathematics, But I lived a good life, I have to say. I have to say that compared to a lot of lives,
Well, that sounds like a great place to shut it down here. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Yes, ma'am.